Good evening, folks. Welcome to the 46th episode of the Matias Sports Podcast. I have MassLive Red Sox reporter Christopher Smith. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you coming on. Nice to see you home, not on the current road trip as they start, opening day tomorrow. But as we were just talking, you said you're going to Baltimore on Sunday. So again,
Yep.
wish you the best of luck on your trip and stuff. First road
Yeah,
trip of the year.
Chris Cotillo's doing Texas. So we switch off every opening day.
Mm-hmm.
But last year, because it was on the West Coast, I
Yep.
actually did the first 10 games that year. So
Because were they in LA last year too? Was
yeah,
it
so
Seattle, LA?
they went from Seattle to Oakland to LA.
That's what it was.
That's where Trevor Story got. Or Trevor
Mm-hmm.
Story got hurt in Oakland, but yeah. So the final game in Oakland, maybe? I don't know. Maybe it was the first game in LA,
I
but
think it was in LA. I think it was
yeah,
whenever they started the series.
yeah. So I did the 10 to begin last year. So he's doing the 4 to begin this year, and then I'll be in Baltimore.
Hey, God bless him. I actually spoke to him the other day just via text and stuff, but not that long ago.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, you want to talk about your career, how you got into it, and obviously your passion for baseball, being a beat reporter for Mass Live, which is huge. So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, baseball was always my favorite sport growing up.
Hmm. Me
Watch,
too.
yeah, I mean, I was 162 game a season guy, right? Like
Hmm.
when I was 10 years old, or even before that. I mean, I started really watching them in 1990 when I was 6 years old, and when Tony Pena was on the team, and that's when I started playing t-ball and everything, and I started
Hmm.
watching the Red Sox. So, I mean, I was the type of guy that was, obsessed with it, like growing up. Like, we would go to a family party and the game would be on and I'd be wanting to watch the game. So I'd, sneak out to my dad's car and listen to the game on the radio instead
Yeah.
of, being present at the party. And my mother would always say to me, she'd be like, when you have a daughter someday, are you gonna go to the Red Sox game? Are you gonna watch the Red Sox game, sit home and watch it? Are you gonna go to a recital? And I would say, I don't know, Mom, I don't know. But she's like, you have to get over this obsession of watching every game. So, but it works out because I get to be in there every day or
Yeah, that's awesome.
every day. So yeah, I mean, I always kind of had I've always been a better writer than anything. Like I was
Hmm.
not a good math person, all that. My father had once told me, I think when I was in the fourth grade, he said like, I always wanted to be a sports writer when I was growing up. So that was kind of like the first, I put it in my mind. I remember in fourth grade, I wrote an autobiography and it said that someday I wanted to play for the Red Sox and then when I retired, I want to be a reporter for them. So,
You just
I guess,
reversed the roles.
yeah, so I guess, so I guess it's been going on for a while that I wanted to do it. But, uh, when you get to college and you start doing it, it's like, there's not many opportunities, right? Like there's
Hmm.
not many Red Sox beat reporter jobs. So while that was always the goal growing up, um, I went to Syracuse, and from there, I went. There was no job. Like there was no Red Sox beat reporter job waiting for me. I went to Missouri. I drove 20 hours to Missouri and lived in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, covering 20 high school schools for 2 years. And so, at that point, I was really content with, covering high school.
Hmm.
I covered some college sports too. Southeast Missouri State was there. And so at that point, I was just pretty content on what I was doing. I did come back here and originally work at the Eagle Tribune. When I got back here, I worked at the Eagle Tribune, and Bill Bird, who's there, said something. He was going to be the editor. He was doing mostly pro sports back in that,
Hmm.
but he was going to become the sports editor. So he said, if anybody wants to try out the Red Sox, I could send you in there. And so,
That's amazing.
yeah. And so I said to him, well, I always wanted to be a Red Sox reporter. So why don't I give it a shot?
Hmm.
So we were supposed to go together on opening day 2010, which was CC Sabathia against Josh Beckett. And
Well, what a matchup.
yeah, and that was the Easter Sunday night baseball game.
Hmm.
And so, not to be too graphic here, but on the way to Easter brunch or whatever, I got really sick in the car
Hmm.
and I started throwing up.
Oh,
And
jeez.
so, and so I got to my mother's house for brunch, and she says I immediately went to bed. I was like, I gotta hopefully I shake this off or whatever. I can get to the game tonight. While I was in bed sick, Bill Burke called me on the phone and he left a message and he's like, I'm sick, so I can't come to the game with you tonight. Good luck, like that type of
Oh, jeez.
so I'm like, oh, I have to go down because nobody's
Yeah.
gonna be there. So I was like sick and miserable the whole
Hmm.
game. It was not fun for me. And it was late. I didn't really know what I was doing. Um, the game got, I just remember it being a miserable experience. And I said to Bill Bird afterwards, I said, I'm good. I was like, I don't have to go back in there at all again. I was like, I'm good with just the high school, the college, whatever you want me to, do occasional, whatever. And so he said, well, what, Carlos Pena is from Haverhill. And he's like, he's coming in with the Tampa Bay Rays. Why don't you go in there one more time next week and, try to do a story on him?
Hmm.
Because, he's from Haverhill and, he's a local guy and we like
Yep.
that. So I went to the visitors clubhouse, you know, did the thing, got the story with Carlos Pena. And, ever since then, like that was when I got hooked,
Hmm.
and it was a job where at the Eagle Tribune, I mean, I was covering Red Sox games also on my own time, right? Like they would send me to Red Sox games, but the priority during the high school season in spring before the summer began, when I went in there, when I got to go in there, was cover a high school game. So I remember
Hmm.
covering a game at Lynn Stadium, a high school game of some sort, like a lacrosse or whatever, and then driving to Fenway on my own time after that to cover the Red Sox that night. So a lot of it was just, originally was just like, I like this, so I'm just going to go in and do as much as possible and see where it goes. And eventually it got to the point where, I was doing enough and I got recognized enough that MassLive hired me.
No, that's amazing. I mean, I think I've spoken to him via email, maybe on the phone, Bill Burr, right?
Yeah,
Bill Burr, yeah.
Wilbur,
And
yeah.
I think he's kind of told me like, you got to get your reps in, whatever it was. But how was the transition from working at the Eagle Tribune to like Mass Live and now being part of like an astonishing team between Chris Cotillo, Sean McAdam, and yourself? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was it was an easier transition than I thought. Like when I was with the Eagle Tribune, I kind of got to do whatever I wanted on,
Hmm.
a daily basis. Like, if just a feature here, not you don't have to cover the game, just go in there, write a feature on a guy. And um so I wasn't really like a downright beat reporter, right? Like I didn't know what that life would be like. And injury updates, everything, and so but Mass Live's similar in the fact that they let me do my thing, right? Like
Hmm.
they let me do my thing. I do have to do, I obviously do the everyday stuff, but I also get, they let me have flexibility, which I can, choose stories and do it. And so I've always loved working at Mass Live. One of there's different transitions that you have to get used to when you work at, say a newspaper like the Eagle Tribune that has a website, but their focus isn't totally on the website,
Hmm.
or on the paper. As to Mass Live, you get there and it's like, it's the website, right?
Yeah, no paper.
Yeah, and so they do a lot of things like they let us see all our statistics, like page views and all that online. So a lot of like the early time there was like looking at that stuff, figuring out what fans like to read about. And then going with that. So like if there's a pregame press conference and I'm in Toronto and Cora speaks before the game and he speaks for 15 minutes to reporters,
Yep.
I should have an idea of like out of that 15 minutes, what readers want to read the most out of everything. And so you get that. So it's really it's a different world being in online journalism too, because you really have to pay attention to, the analytics per se and like what people want to read
Yeah.
uh so it's fun. Always found it fun, and I just I enjoy it. It's a type of job where is pretty worry-free, stress-free. And so I worry more about like, taking care of the kids here at my house than doing when I'm at work. I worry less there. So
No, that's awesome. I mean, being on the road covering the team and just being at baseball games, like at least how many do you attend a year? Like 80, 90 game? I mean, I know you guys kind of
no,
split
actually,
between the
so
three,
so
you
it should be
guys, but
more. So me and Catillo usually split up road games. So he'll do, 40, so it'll be 40-40. And then
hmm.
you go to a lot of the home games. So, I mean, maybe I'll miss like 20 home games. So, yeah, about like
Oh well.
100, around 60, 40, 100, maybe around 100 to 110. So in 2018, when the Athletic became a thing
Hmm.
and was Jen McCaffrey was with me. I don't know if you know that, but she was at MassLive with me at that time.
Okay.
And, she had taken the job at the Athletic right before the Red Sox season began. So she was actually scheduled to go on certain road trips. Like there was an Oakland series and another West Coast and then a Toronto series, like right at the beginning of that year. She had been scheduled to go on some. I had been scheduled to go on some. Well, she gave them, to the traditional 2 weeks notice or whatever, but it was right
Hmm.
before the season. So it's difficult to find the right person, right, to be on the beat in 2 weeks. You're not going to do that. So,
Yeah.
so they started talking with Cotillo in terms of getting the job, but he was a senior at UNC at that point. So he
Yeah.
was taking classes and he wasn't graduated yet. So it was basically me on the beat alone for, a couple months. I think I covered like 54 out of the first 57 games,
Wow.
road and home. And it was just like the only games that I hadn't didn't cover at home. It was just that they sent in somebody from Mass Ave, like a person that covers high school sports or something, to give me like one night off after a road trip. But I
Hmm.
was like, at that point I was, how old was I? 34. So I was still young. I was enjoying that. I was like, I wanted to be on every
Hmm.
road trip and every game. But it does get tiring when you do 54 out of 57. I was glad that Cotillo came aboard soon after that.
Yeah, no, Chris seems like a super nice guy. Like I reach out to him from here and there, advice, yada yada yada, and his workshop's amazing. He's always promoting his workshop. He's trying to get people. He's probably had you on there talking to the kids, whoever's on there. I mean, he's wonderful. I had Sean on my podcast too, maybe last month, whatever it was. Just you guys are great. You guys do great coverage. I wanted to transition to talking about opening day in the Red Sox. I actually clicked, I think you posted something on Twitter today that talking about Marcelo Mayer, like how he had like a phenomenal spring, and it's like, damn, he didn't make the team, but I wanted to obviously hit on the
Yeah.
big three and obviously were you at spring training too? I mean, you,
Yeah, I
Tristan,
was
John.
I was there for the first 3 weeks, then I came home for 10 days, then I was there for the final 12 days. So I was there for most of spring training. And Marcelo really stood out to me. I had written an article, I think in January, who's the closest of the big three to the majors.
Hmm.
The order I said Christian Campbell, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer. Now, seeing camp as it developed, I was like, wow, Marcelo's probably closer than both of them. However, I mean, Christian Campbell ended up getting the job,
Out of
uh,
the three,
the
yeah.
everyday second baseman. But there I was on that,
Hmm.
from the first day that they signed Bregman was, like Christian Campbell's going to be the opening day second baseman. It's not exactly like he went in there and won the job. And so I think he might be the most ready of any of the big three right now. I mean, we'll see with Christian Campbell. I mean, he's not Marcelo's better defensively.
Hmm.
Um, Campbell can obviously hit, but it's a huge transition going from AAA, not having many AAA games, to go and hitting major league pitching with the velo and the spin rate and all this crazy stuff now. We saw it with Jackson Holiday. I mean, he was a
He
young.
struggled last year.
He struggled, and he ended up being sent down to AAA. I think they'll have a long leash with Christian Campbell. But the thing I like about Marcelo, and is if he gets there early in the season, is that he can struggle offensively, and he'll still have confidence. He still feel like he's doing his part, because he plays such good defense. And that's something I worry about with Campbell a little bit. Like if he's struggling offensively and then he struggles defensively as well, where you want a guy to be ready, at least know he's going to be ready on one end, right? Like, oh, he's
Hmm.
going to be ready offensively. He might struggle defensively, but he'll be set there, or he might struggle offensively, but he'll be good defensively. So, he'll help us win games there, that kind of thing for major league teams. And I think that, you know, Marcelo's in that place where he's so good, so smooth, great instincts, all that defensively, that he could play second, short, or third right now in the majors and be successful as a defender there. And the hitting will come. I mean, rookies last year, I think they combined to hit 233 with a on base percentage of, I don't know, it's in the 200s. So it's not like, rookies, it's very difficult. It's not,
Hmm.
I mean, if you asked Alex Core like what pitching is like now compared to what it was like in 2000, I think 10 was his final year. I mean, he'd be like, it's totally, it's insane right now as it was. It's compared to what it was. So the transition's harder than ever to go from AAA to the majors, and so I would caution Red Sox fans to have some patience with Campbell. He has hit recently, like in the
Hmm.
fall spring training games and in Mexico. He hit a huge home run the other day, in Mexico last night. So maybe he does come out and he hits like crazy to be in the air, but there's a good chance he won't. You just have to have patience and know that he's going to put up good at bats. He's going to control the strike zone. He's somebody that, has that ability to walk and control the strike zone. And if he's giving them good at bats down, lower in the lineup, they can accept that for, a while.
I know they haven't submitted the lineup quite yet because obviously it's still early, but you would know better than I do. But he's probably going to hit lower in the order, right? Between like 6 and 9, 6 and 8.
Yeah, that would be the order is going to be interesting. I mean, like, you're going to have Duran. Devers is going to be second against both lefties and righties.
Hmm.
And you got Bregman, Tristan Casas, so
Cleanup.
and then Trevor Story probably fifth. So
Hmm.
that's a left. Well, that's a left, right, or something like that. And so they've got a good balance at the top. And I think one important thing is, like, Tristan told me last year when I was talking to him about some of these guys, he was like, I put too much pressure on himself. He said I put too much pressure on myself at the beginning of 2023. That was his first year, right? 2023 was really his first full year. He was like,
Hmm.
I wanted to be, the guy, right? Like I wanted to carry my weight and be a guy in the lineup. And you know, he said that the important thing that he learned is that, went on was like there's other guys that are going to carry the lineup. Like at that point, like there's the Devers, and there was other guys on the team at that point. I'm trying to think if Bogarts was still on, whatever, you know what I mean.
Hmm.
He carries the lineup, and he had to accept the fact that there were going to be some, ups and downs. And I think that's what Campbell needs to do down low, like lower in the lineup, not try to be the man, just try to, rely on your other guys, your big veterans like, Devers and Story and Bregman and Duran to carry the load, and you do your best down there and hope that, it clicks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every single season, Chris, probably like yourself since you've been a kid and since I've been little too, I look forward to the baseball season and then I get kind of shell shocked midway June, July, and it's like I still keep watching because I just love the game so much, and I love all of baseball. It's not just the Red Sox. Obviously, I'm a diehard Red Sox fan, but every single year I have high hopes, and now, with Garrett Crochet starting tomorrow. Still don't know a heck a ton about him, obviously, but it seems like he's going to be our ace because you got Brian Bale being down, you got some of these guys being down, but then you got some new faces between Crochet, Bueller. Was it Sean Newcomb's going to be the fifth starter? I heard Cora
Yeah.
say that the other day. If it was on Twitter or whatever it was, Sean's going to be the fifth guy. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on the team as a whole, and then obviously the pitching staff, as it's kind of a little depleted right now to start the season?
I think right now Crochet is second best odds on most sites to be the AL Cy Young.
Hmm.
Behind Therese Google. So I look at him and I mean this stuff is just nasty. Like the overall, like he had some like the stuff meter, like or something like that from these advanced websites. Like one of them has it's the best stuff in baseball last year, right? Like
Yeah.
I asked him,
Unlimited innings too.
yeah.
Uh,
And so I was like, you had the best stuff in baseball according to this. And so but like his fastball velocity is incredible. He'll get it up to 100. There was, I think, three starts in September last year that he hit 100, and including the final start, and he had been up to 99 on opening day, so he was able to maintain his velocity. I mean, they, as I said, limited innings last year,
mhm.
but they took it careful with him, and that should help this year too, right? But I think he's just an exciting guy. He's your legit. Um, he should be your number. He should be your opening day starter. And I look at like a Bayo, and I think he's expected to be back in the first couple weeks of the
Yep.
season. It's nothing serious with him. I look at him as somebody that could make a big step this year. He had a better second half last year. Once he started throwing his four seam fastball again, he had gotten away from that in the first half because it got ripped apart in 2023. So to begin 2024, they said, well, why don't we not throw the four seamer if it's going to get, if it got killed last year, why not we just eliminate this?
Hmm.
And they decided to bring it back, and because he wasn't pitching well, and they put it in a different location, and all of a sudden it's a really good pitch. He's got one of the better changeups, and so if he can really figure out his pitch mix and what he does best and where he places it, he can make a big jump this year. Should maybe be a little concerned about Hauk. I mean, I don't care about spring training stats, but he didn't have a good spring training at all. Uh,
Hmm.
so we'll keep an eye on that as the season goes on. Lucas Giolito isn't far behind Bayo, so he should be back in the rotation soon. Cutter Crawford's the furthest away of anybody, but and Walker Buehler, I think he has potential for a really good year. He looked good in spring. um he always steps it up like in big games, right? Like
You could see
he,
with the World Series last year.
yeah, I mean when he came back from Tommy John surgery last year, he was not that good in
Hmm.
August and September when he came back, and then all of a sudden he turned on a switch, in October, and even recorded the final out of the World Series. And so if you can get this team to the playoffs with what they have rotation wise, with Crochet and with Hauk that was an all-star last year, and Bayo who should take a step forward, and Bueller who's been a big game pitcher in the postseason, this team could do some damage. So I guess the goals of this team should be like get one of those wild card spots, and that 100% should be attainable. I mean, there should be no reason they don't get a wild card spot. I mean, ultimately, you're looking to win the AL East, but there's no reason this team shouldn't at least get a wild card spot.
I know. I feel like we've been saying that for the past few years because they've been
I
on the
think
fringe,
so.
but
Yeah, but I
especially
think
this
there's a
season, I
difference, though.
agree
I
with
think
you.
there's a difference. I think, like, it was funny, like listening to Sam Kennedy at Winter Weekend in 2024, before the 2024 season. Are you going to make any more moves? Payroll, those type of questions. Um, he didn't exactly feel the team was there yet to make those moves, right? Like
Hmm.
it's like like he said like something to the effect of we'll make those moves when, we feel is the right time.
Yeah.
And so they finally made the moves. They brought in Walker and Crochet and finally traded some prospects to get, a big time starter. And then obviously spent, big time money in a way for right. But I mean, I don't know how big time of money that is because you know, there's the ability to opt out after the first year, so they might only be on the hook for 1 year of that contract, but it is still a big contract and it shows you the Red Sox are the Red Sox, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that they looked at it and they were like, well, that team last year, they were probably thinking that if they had just done a little bit more last offseason, that team was capable of a wild card spot. And so they're probably like, well, the time is now. And they look at the big three and how close they are to the majors. Obviously, Campbell's starting the year off in the majors, but Roman Anthony and Marcelo aren't far behind. So it's like, the time is now, and they finally went out and made the move. So I think that's the biggest difference. They should have realized, like last you just said, like that went into last year thinking they could get a wild card. Well,
Yeah.
you did, I did. I don't think the Red Sox did though, right?
Even
Because they
middle of the season, I think they
didn't
had
make
like
the
the best
move.
stretch or
Yeah,
whatever
they
it
didn't
was.
make the moves to put themselves in, to supplement that roster to get it to where it could
Hmm.
be. If they had done that entering that season, they probably would have been in the wild card last year, or won a wild card last year because they did play very good at certain stretches last year. Even in 2020, what is it, three? I mean, they kind of collapsed in September, but they were pretty good throughout that season. So now that they are serious, which it appears they are, I think that you can legitimately say that this is a year where it's, make the playoffs or bust, and if they don't, it's unacceptable. I mean, in the John Henry ownership era, they've never gone 3 years until now, 2022, 2023, and 2024 without making the postseason. They had never gone 3 years before. So if they don't make it this year, with the moves they made and everything, it's pretty unacceptable.
No, absolutely. And especially, I always refer to that 2021 ALCS and where you lose in, was it game six, game seven of the Astros? It's like, that was like the last time they made the playoffs and they were still like relevant. And it's like, so many guys have come and gone, like Nate Eovaldi, like they're gonna be facing him tomorrow, and that's
Yep.
still weird to me. Obviously, he was part of the Red Sox for a few seasons, and I would have loved to see him back, but I know with age and stuff like that. But no, you're making valid points, Chris, with the team and stuff, and I'm hoping Duran has another great year because I remember him coming up and starting, and it was difficult for him. I know mental health, stuff like that. They mentioned he went through a lot of stuff with that. And obviously the media and all the criticism of him, he's not going to make it, but he was always like a fringe player. But what's your thoughts on Jaron Duran, and especially the 2024 season, how he was the All-Star Game MVP?
Well, I recently said to Cattell that, he could have fall off this year, like some drop off in statistics, but
Hmm.
still be an extremely valuable player, like have a high WAR. And that's because he does it all. Like those are the high WAR players and the ones that get MVP votes like he did. And so, I mean, actually he could have a better year than last year because they don't want him to play 162 games this
But
year.
he wants to.
Yes, he played 160 games last year. The reason he didn't play two, but that's a lot. Like
For sure.
160 games, especially the way he plays. And so, if you look at his numbers going into September, um, he would have finished a lot higher in the MVP voting if he had maintained that in September. The numbers
Hmm.
definitely dropped. And so if you keep him healthy and rested into September, and he's probably going to have a better September. Maybe he has a better year the next year, but realistically, it was a really good year, right? Like I think seventh or eighth in the MVP voting, and you can't really expect that, but you can expect something similar because of his ability as a player on all ends of the game, running, defense and hitting. The stolen bases are valuable.
Hmm.
The whether he's a great defender or whether they figured out where to put him in the field to best use him and best make him track down balls in certain alignments in the outfield. Either way, I mean, he's still way better of a defender than he was when he first came up, right? Like
Yeah.
I think he had like 18 defensive runs there, something like that, last year. And so
Yeah, it's impressive.
yeah, and so like, you could say maybe it's the Red Sox doing a good job with their analytics team putting people in the right spots. However, they could have put him in those right spots in 2022 too, or he wouldn't have done that. And so he has improved drastically. And so all those statistics, all those numbers right there will accumulate and put a war that's another impressive war. And so I think he'll have a good season. When you look at the end, he's a streak hitter at times, so you can have streaks at the end of the year when it gets to be September and you look at it and you're like, oh, that was a good season. So I
Hmm.
think he'll be good. I don't know if he'll be good. He might be better, as I said, but we'll see.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm hoping he builds off his confidence of last year, 2024, the All-Star Game MVP. Like you said, he finished seventh or eighth in the MVP. But one name, obviously, we're running low on time, but I wanted to mention too is what you talked about before. How is Tristan Casas like been since the trade rumors over the winter? I know you've spoken to him, and he seems like he's confident and he's just ready for the 2025 season with the Red Sox.
Yeah, so tr not much gets to Tristan. That's one of the good things about his
Hmm.
personality in Boston. Like he did struggle in April of his first full season. I mean, he came up in what was it, 2022 at the end of the year, but like his first
Yeah,
full
with the
season,
Rays series, if I remember. I could
yeah,
be
but
wrong,
like
but
the first actual like real taste, like you have the job, you're the first baseman. He
hmm.
struggled that first month and month and a half, and it didn't really affect him. And he's got that type of personality. So I think that same thing would be true for, trade rumors and everything that comes out. There's not much that's going to rattle him or bother him. There's not much that he's going to be focused on baseball. And, he knows what he is as a hitter. He knows he's good, pitch selection, picking zones and hitting the, pitches in the right zone. And um, so he's just a good overall hitter, and he should be capable of hitting 30 home runs this year. The most important thing is staying healthy. That we have seen that with him, not only this last year with the rib, but there was a year in the minors that he missed, quite a bit of time too. And so,
Hmm.
you know, that's the most important thing. Big body guy, obviously, it's more difficult to stay healthy, but
Yeah, for sure.
um, you need to have him stay healthy and productive, and that's going to be a huge boost. And the trade rumors might continue on this year,
Hmm.
like that might just happen because they did. There was a lot of talk in the offseason involving his name.
Hmm.
So, that or he might look like an all-star first baseman and, all the trade rumors, subside and you don't hear anything about them ever again. So, I think he's an important, I think he's a important, like I would not trade Tristan Casas because I think he's capable
He's
of being,
very important. Yeah.
I think he's capable of being a really above average hitting first baseman. So I've always thought his upside was great, and I think they recognize that. They just gotta get him healthy.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And with that, no, I appreciate your time and you coming on my podcast and speaking about your career and obviously the Red Sox that I love talking about. So thank you so much, Chris.
Oh, anytime, anytime. Thank you for having me.